Greetings, everyone. Today, as part of my sketchbook exercise, I'm going to draw a dragon's eye. And I think this could be kind of an interesting thing for anybody to do if they're interested in that sort of thing. I often like to sketch with just a pen and ink and kind of live with any little mistakes that I make. And I think that's kind of a fun way to do things if you're not really concerned about making those kind of mistakes. But anyway, let's see what we can do. I want to try to think about what kind of mood this creature might be in. Now let's zoom in on this just a little bit. Let's try there. You know, are they happy to see us? Let's see if we can lock that down. Okay. Now, typically I like to also think anatomy-wise, how does the eye get protected? So it might be sort of deeper into the socket and have like a brow that sticks out much further than the eye itself. How do the eyelids work? So I like to think about that kind of stuff. So right now we just have the eyelid and the shape of the eye. I'm going to dip the pen here again. And the benefit of having the brow would be, let's say, we're going to put kind of like a battle scar here. And luckily, because of the brow and the eye socket, it gets to miss most of the eye itself. So let's say this is like a scar, well, from Lion King. Scar. So, eye is set in the eye socket and the brow. So let's see what we can do with this. I'm going to try backing that out just a little bit more again. Yeah. Okay. Now let's see if we can put in some detail. Now it may not be necessary to have a tear duct if it has like a nictating membrane in the eye, much like a crocodile. But I haven't seen a dragon up close, so we're just going to play around with this a little bit. I'm thinking of how I want the pupil to look. And do I want a spot where we'd have a reflection of something? I'm just going to lightly put in a little bubble of reflection. We'll leave the bubble without the detail of the rest of the eye. Now, typically I like to think of the pupil as kind of like a cone that goes deep, and you can just leave it black, and then as the pupil we leave with that little bubble in it. Same thing we'll do with the iris here. We'll think of it as like a bowl too. Kind of like a bowl. these lines here would go thinner as you go in towards the pupil itself. I like to look at the veining a little bit differently here. A little fuller towards the outside and then a lot lighter in towards the pupil. So today is the birthday of someone who is one of the coolest people on the planet. So I'll quickly say happy birthday, Janice. I hope you're having an awesome day. And hopefully you're drawing along. Now, one of the fun things is we're going to put in the pupil. Now this is a finer detailed pen. You know what? Just for fun. Let's see what happens here. I'm going to move a lot more ink with this detailing brush. That's pretty dramatic. Now on the underside of this paper, or I should say other side, why not? I actually do have an extra piece of paper to keep it from bleeding through too much. Clean that brush. All right, so that moved that pupil pretty fast. I like to give the illusion that the eye is round by shading around the outside of the eye just a little bit. And if you watch most of my freehand videos, you'll notice that I will start with the eye. And if I'm not actually penciling first and doing it just like this, that's usually the way I do things. There's nothing wrong with using a pencil first. But if I'm like traveling or whatnot, I don't have a pencil with me. I often will use just a pen. And that forces me to think of how I want lines to look. we're going to exaggerate some of the folds of skin for the eyelid. Do that one like that too. It's okay if it looks kind of messy. I'm going to do kind of a scaling effect around the eye. I'm going to avoid putting scales on things that move too much. And then the scales can get a little bit bigger as we're moving along. And of course, I have that scar there. This would be the side of the nose. Remember, this isn't really a, well, it's not really a tutorial. I don't really do tutorials. I'm more along the lines of just showing you how I like to do stuff. You can develop your own way of doing this kind of stuff too. But this is just kind of a fun thing to do in your sketchbook. If you're doing this with like a rollerball pen, it would look cool as well. As you can see, I'm staying on either side of the scar that I created, and that my scaling effect kind of spreads out a little bit as we get wider away from the eye. And let's do that to the top here, just for fun. Do like little smaller ones, moving away from the eye itself. Just a few like that, and then we're going to change it up because the upper brow we're going to have a little bit different. I'm going to extend this ridge a little bit there. Now, I'm going to make it so that we can have an eyebrow that can have some expression to it. Dip my pen. And this part here, we're going to go pretty dark because we want that brow to be stuck out. So you'll see what I'll do here soon enough. I'm just going to kind of quickly sort of streak in some of this area. I'm not really going to cross hatch it, although you could, but the reason why I'm not going to is I'm more likely to use my detailing brush with some water on it. Now, we're going to have some spikes of sorts, but not really spikes, just the way the flesh kind of grows. We're going to treat it a little bit like hair. Now, some of it will go past the scar a little bit. Some of it will start at the scar. Again, it looks kind of messy, but that's okay. Now, some of you may have had the opportunity to look at some of my other videos with Chicken Jockey, for example, and how I like to doodle dragon's feet based on chicken's feet, which is just kind of funny that I do that. Okay. Now, that's what I'm doing with that sketch so far. Now I have a brush and water, and I'm just going to kind of darken in some of these areas. Just like that. Which is why I wasn't super precise with cross hatching or that sort of thing, is because I knew that I was going to do this a little lighter down here and a little bit thicker up here. And of course, you can do this with just pen alone. I'm going to work from the outside to the inside of the pupil just a little bit, towards the pupil, but I like to leave it lighter around the pupil itself. few of those little streaks making it towards the center of that eye. And doing this will also sort of exaggerate this blurry bubble reflection. Now this, I'm going to put like little swirlies. Just like that. The eyelids, as I said, they're set in as well, because you want the cheekbone and the brow to sit out higher than the eye to help protect it from damage in battle. So we're going to have this set in just a little bit. That's the illusion that we're going to create. And a little bit of darkness here. Not that dragons need to cry, but we need the tears to be able to go somewhere. So this is going to be like a gutter system. And we'll do it on both sides. So tears need to go somewhere. And if not tears, then let's say rain. Oh. Again, we want it to look like it's set in just a little bit. And I didn't put any of the scarring on the eyelid, because if something hit the eye that way and damaged the eyelid, it might have damaged the actual eye itself. So I think that creates enough of that illusion. Now all this darkness here underneath the brow, I'm going to fill that in with more area that avoided damage. And again, I didn't cross hatch or anything like that, just because I knew that this is going to happen. Now down here, we're going to exaggerate the meeting of the eye socket and the cheek just a little bit. Create that place where the tears can go if necessary, or the water droplets. however you wish. I'll just run a little bit of water over this, but not too much. And give it a little bit of depth as well. I'm going to exaggerate where the scar went through. That's something, if we wanted to, we could have made multiple scars as if it was another dragon's claw that went through, so you could have had like some through there, and we still could if we want to. So let's say if we do that, I'm going to do a scar there. But you can plan that kind of stuff out if that's what you want it to do. I did not plan on doing that. Which is fine. Now the last thing that I'll do on Jan's birthday is I'll go back in with my regular pen, clean that brush first, of course, set the water aside, dip the pen, and head back in as if everything that we've done with intention. Because of course we have. And we're okay with that. And we remember that we have these sort of like eyebrow spikes going that way, so we'll have some of them that can still kind of make it through that scar on that side. And of course on this side they start. We can put in some little scratchies, the way the flesh might look. And some of those, as I said, would make its way into the scar line. I'm just putting back in some of the detail that I kind of washed out. I think we're coming to the end of this, which is a look inside my head on how I kind of think when I'm drawing an eye. especially for my sketchbook. So just put that detail back in. All right, there you are, one dragon eye done kind of the way that I would do it, with battle scar over the eye. That's it. Thanks for hanging out, and at some point in the near future, we could expand on this if we feel like it, or not. I don't know. But this is just kind of a fun thing to do. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Again, happy birthday, Janice, and hopefully we'll see you guys at some point in the near future. All right. Ciao for now.